Before Richard Boone passed away, he left a special thing behind. It wasn't just his amazing acting or his name as one of Hollywood's toughest guys. He also had a quiet list of people in his head. It was 5 actors who had made him really, really mad. These were not just little fights or tiny things that annoyed him. These were big arguments that caused real stress, hurt feelings, and stories the movie companies never wanted fans to hear. Today, we are going to look into those hidden feuds and the times when being nice turned into being angry. These are the 5 actors Richard Boone reportedly hated the most and the super hot reasons why. Richard Boone was born on June 18, 1917 in a city called Los Angeles. He was a child who was born into a comfortable, easy life, but he grew up with 2 very different family sides. His father, Kirk, was a neat, smart lawyer who came from the same family as the famous explorer Daniel Boone. His mother, Cecile, was very kind because of her family from Russia, and she made their house full of music. Together, they made a home where rules and fun imagination shared the same space, where old family history was right next to art. Young Boone grew up trying to figure out how to live with those opposite things. In Los Angeles, which was a city still trying to figure out who it was. He did very well in school and became a strong football player after his family moved to Glendale. At Hoover High, he played a position called guard with a lot of energy, which showed how tough he was under his calm face. But under the athlete guy lived a boy who quietly loved reading books and stories long before he knew how much they would mean to him. He also liked to cause trouble, pulling jokes, trying out exciting things, trying to run away from a nervous feeling he couldn't name. Stanford University should have been the best thing ever, but the fancy buildings and same old things only made him feel more like he didn't belong. Boone wanted life to wake him up, to take him somewhere real and surprising, long before he knew that acting would be that place. By 1937, Boone walked away from college and stepped into a world that needed toughness instead of good grades. He worked hard on oil rigs, letting the heat and heavy machines make him stronger. He did a little painting, tried writing, and even got into a boxing ring just to see what his body and heart could put up with. But life had an even harder test waiting for him. When the United States joined World War II, Boone joined the Navy. He became a special worker who handled weapons and a gunner on TBM Avenger bombers, sitting squeezed in the back of a very loud airplane. He shot at enemy planes while the sky was being ripped apart all around him. 4 years fighting in the Pacific Ocean left a mark on him that never really went away. The man who came back home was not the young guy who was just floating around before he left. He carried the heavy feeling of almost dying and friends who were lost to the ocean. Starting over felt impossible, but a special rule called the GI Bill helped him start a new life. Boone chose a job nobody thought he would: acting. At the Actors Studio in New York, he learned from a teacher named Sanford Meisner, who taught him that real acting came from true feelings, not just practicing smart tricks. He learned how to move his body with a teacher named Martha Graham, letting rules make his stage presence better. Slowly, the war soldier became an artist. Without the GI Bill, none of it would have happened. It didn't just pay for him to learn, it built a whole new life. By 1947, Boone finally walked into the world he had been getting ready for without even knowing it. The stage. His first time acting on Broadway was in an old Greek play called Medea, a show that was so huge it felt bigger than real life. It was directed by the legendary John Gielgud and had Judith Anderson's scary, strong acting, and the play became a massive theater event. It started at the National Theater, then moved to the Royale, running for a very impressive 214 shows. Boone's part was small. He was a soldier, just a tiny whisper in the story, but the whole experience was massive. Standing next to acting giants, watching Anderson give a performance that would win her a big award, he felt himself getting much better, learning, becoming a real actor. 1 year later, he was in the play Macbeth, showing he could fight with Shakespeare's difficult words and still do well. By 1950, he showed up in The Man, a serious play directed by Martin Ritt, which looked into right and wrong and fighting, themes Boone would keep with him like shadows for many years. That same year, Hollywood called his name. A 7-year deal with 20th Century Fox pulled him from Broadway's dusty back rooms into the bright lights and attention of the movie camera. His first movie was Halls of Montezuma in 1951, a World War II story directed by Louis Milestone. Boone played Lieutenant Co. Lonel Gill Felon, sharing the screen with famous actors like Richard Whitmark, Jack Palance, and Carl Malden. The movie also acted as good advertising for the Marine Corps, giving his first movie job both a feeling of love for his country and difficult feelings. Even with a lot of people in the movie, Boone's presence was easy to spot. The deep voice, the tough face, the quiet strength, Hollywood saw a soldier long before they saw an actor. But inside that tough outside lived the rule-following artist who was made in New York's Actors Studio. He learned there to make every character feel real and true. Halls of Montezuma didn't just show him to movie watchers. It set the mood for a career that was all about being serious, real, and having a kind of deep, dark feeling that looked like it was carved from his own past hurts. Now let's talk about the actors Richard Boone hated or had trouble getting along with. Fire the five feuds. Number 1. Charles Bronson. Bronson came to star in an episode of Have Gun Will Travel when he was still starting out, and two very tough personalities crashed right away. Bronson was quiet, stubborn, and didn't like taking directions very well. Boone was loud, hot-tempered, and demanded that everyone follow the rules. The fighting between them became a famous story on the CBS movie lot. They were like two big stone statues staring at each other when they weren't filming. When Bronson tried to change a fight scene by just doing it, Boone got mad and said, "If you want to run the scene, direct your own show." They finished the episode without more fighting, but everyone could feel the angry tension. Number 2. Jack Palance. Palance and Boone were made from the same strong material. They were heavy, dark, and you never knew what they would do. When the two worked on the same set in the late 50s, their acting styles smashed into each other hard. Palance believed in being physically powerful, standing tall, taking up the whole screen. Boone believed in emotional power, his voice, his presence, the way he made a threat feel real. People working on the set joked that the cameras had to survive the heavy feeling between the two of them. At one point, Palance tried to change where he was supposed to stand. Boone fought back. It wasn't loud yelling. It was much worse. Long, quiet stares, tight jaws, and a feeling so dark that the lighting guy said he could feel the lights getting dim. Number 3. Lee Marvin. Whenever Richard Boone and Lee Marvin ended up on the same movie set, the feeling in the air changed instantly. Marvin carried a kind of wildness in his heart, the kind that smelled like smoke from a bar, late-night fights, and a lot of whiskey. Boone, on the other hand, lived by strong rules and controlling his feelings, which made Marvin's unpredictable energy feel like a lit bomb fuse burning across the floor. During one tough Western movie shoot, Marvin came to a practice feeling a little bit off. He wasn't totally drunk, but he had that clear Marvin kind of looseness. Boone noticed it right away. Between takes, Marvin laughed too loud, messed up a line, and changed things when he wasn't supposed to. Boone finally walked up and growled very low and dangerously, "If you want to pretend to be drunk, that's fine. If you want to actually be drunk, go do it somewhere else." Marvin yelled back just as angrily, and for a moment, it looked like two legendary tough guys were about to start a bar fight right on the sound stage. The director quickly ran in, but the angry feeling stayed, making the very next scene they filmed feel electric. Number 4. James Coburn. James Coburn walked onto movie sets like he was just strolling into a beach party, super relaxed, smiling, giving off a feeling of cool California vibes. Richard Boone could not have been more different. He treated acting as if every scene was a battle plan that he had to do perfectly and exactly right. That difference didn't just cause some tension, it defined their entire time working together. On one movie, Coburn kept adding tiny changes, a little smile, a quick shoulder move, a long, quiet pause that made the scene too long. Boone hated wasting time, and after the fourth try, which was messed up by Coburn's smooth changes, he snapped, "If you pause any longer, we'll be finishing this scene at Christmas." Coburn just laughed, replying, "Relax, man, the camera loves it." Boone did not laugh. That big difference, the easygoing rebel versus the super serious perfectionist, created a quiet anger that never fully went away. They respected each other, but every day on set felt like trying to push two magnets together the wrong way. Number 5. Clint Walker. Walker wasn't aggressive or mean, but he was stubborn and spoke very softly. The exact type of person Boone had trouble understanding. Boone pushed the actors he worked with to be sharper. Walker just stood there as calm as a big rock. During a Western shoot, Walker insisted on, doing a scene the natural, regular way and refused Boone's idea for saying his lines with much more feeling. Boone replied, "We're not out in the woods, we're making television." Walker still refused to change. Boone walked off the set for 10 minutes to calm himself down. Even though they remained polite to each other, every time they worked together carried a feeling of quiet stress. They were two men who wouldn't give in, just in very different ways. 2 years after his first time in Hollywood, Boone took a job that showed just how deeply he could get into a character's hurt and sad heart. In the movie The Robe, 1953, he wore the robes of Pontius Pilate, not like a mean bad guy, but as a man hiding behind his job while feeling guilty deep inside him. The movie made history because it was the first one to use a wide screen called cinemascope. But one of the most remembered moments belonged only to Boone. After officially washing his hands to show he wasn't responsible for Jesus' death, Pilate later reaches for water again without even thinking about it, just by habit. It's a small movement, but it shows a man haunted by the truth he refuses to look at, with lines spoken in a cold, quiet whisper. "Did I? So I did." Boone turned a small part into something quietly unforgettable. That same year, he dove into the dark, serious movie style called film noir with Vicky, playing Lieutenant Ed Cornell, a detective whose extreme focus on a murdered model slowly ruins him from the inside. Boone didn't act like a hero trying to catch a bad guy. He played him as a man slowly going crazy. Cornell questioned the people who might have done it with a scary strength, showed up at their houses without being asked, and had a nervous energy that made every scene feel like a small, locked room. When the movie showed his apartment, its walls covered with photos of Vicky arranged like a special religious place, the truth became very clear. Boone was showing a mind that was falling apart. His acting turned Vicky from a simple detective story into a deep look at a person's brain. Roles like these showed who Boone was as an actor. He didn't chase easy heroes or simple bad guys. He looked for men who were marked by fighting, feeling sorry, and inner storms. His deep voice made him feel important. But it was the small emotional differences that made him stand out. Then came Medic, the project that changed his career and brought a new kind of bravery to television. From 1954 to 1956, Boone played Dr. Conrad Steiner, a calm, kind doctor, leading viewers through stories that didn't shy away from real life. He also told the story for each episode, starting with a serious calm that set the feeling. Instead of using fake-looking sets, the show filmed inside the Los Angeles County Hospital with real doctors helping the writers. It talked about things that were rarely seen on TV back then: mental illness, not being able to have children, autism, and even the horrors of an atomic war. The episode Flash of Darkness showed what happened after a nuclear explosion, showing the nervous fears of the Cold War time, while White is the Color followed a pregnant woman who found out she had a deadly sickness. Offering a heartbreaking realness television had never been brave enough to try before. Even though Medic was praised by people who wrote about TV, it had trouble being more popular than the show I Love Lucy, which aired at the same time. The number of people watching stayed small, but its influence on later doctor shows from ER to Grey's Anatomy would be very important. Behind the scenes, Boone was very frustrated. He took acting very seriously, and the fast speed of television often clashed with his desire to go deep into a character. The network bosses kept getting involved and changing things. NBC even stopped an episode that showed a baby being born with surgery because they were afraid of people getting upset. Boone wanted things to be honest. Television wanted things to be safe. Still, he fought for the show's realness, working closely with the show's creator James Moser to keep it smart and real. Medic proved TV could be more than just easy fun. It could be thoughtful, truthful, and brave. And for Boone, it was the start of a restless hunger to have more control over his own creative work. Richard Boone's personal life had its own troubles but also showed quiet, deep love. He got married 3 times. First to Jane Hopper in the late 1930s, then for a short time to Mimi Kelly, and finally to Claire Malone, the woman who stayed by his side until his death. With Claire, he had one son, Peter, who showed up as a child in a few episodes of Have Gun Will Travel, a small copy of his father's story. By the early 1960s, Boone's life had already gathered its share of big storms. A bad car accident in 1963 left him shaken, and the years after that pushed him farther away from Hollywood. In 1970, he moved to live in St. Augustine, Florida, Trady. NG movie sets for acting in his community's theater. There, he put all his energy into a play called Cross and Sword. He taught young actors and even wrote a quiet, thoughtful newspaper column which were small windows into a man trying to stay connected to the craft he loved. But sickness slowly crept in. Throat cancer slowly made the big loud voice that had once defined him quiet. Boone spent his final days at home in Florida, far from the bright lights, carrying both pride and some sadness. When he died in 1981, his ashes were spread in the Pacific Ocean, returning him to the ocean that had made him who he was long before he ever became famous. This set have gun will travel apart from every other Western show of its time. While most cowboy heroes fixed problems with their hands or their guns, Paladin tried to use words first. Violence was only the last thing he would try, saved only for times when talking truly did not work. Boone put smart thinking, jokes, and a sense of doing the right thing into him, slowly making the character into something better than television had ever seen in a frontier hero. People watching noticed. The show ran for 6 full seasons, made 225 episodes, stayed in the top 5 of the TV ratings, and even became a radio show, which was rare for a TV hit. People who wrote about TV praised its writing, its complex ideas, and its thoughtful themes. Paladin's name, which came from the legendary knights of a king named Charlemagne, fit the character perfectly. And Boone leaned into that mythic, old story feeling, building a gunslinger who was guided not by being famous, but by his good conscience. Behind the scenes, Boone's influence was huge. When the director Andrew McLaglen couldn't handle the whole schedule, Boone took over, at first not wanting to, then with growing passion. He directed 28 episodes, focusing on small emotional feelings just as much as on the action. He worked closely with writers like Gene Roddenberry, helping shape the show into something much more deeply thinking than a typical Western. Together, they looked into the difference between justice and getting revenge, power and holding yourself back.